Well, NATO's involvement in Afghanistan began in October 2001 with the U.S.'s bombing campaign. Its aim was to destroy al-Qaeda, the group behind the 9/11 attacks. By January the following year, NATO-led forces gradually entered the war. At the peak of the mission, there were more than 140,000 soldiers from almost 50 countries. Now, there are doubts over whether Afghan forces are ready to take full charge of security. The Taliban and other fighters have increased attacks in recent months, and the 350,000-strong force has been undermined by a high desertion rate. Well, joining us now is Masood Aziz. He's a former senior advisor at the Afghan embassy in Washington, D.C., and he joins us there live from there now. Thank you very much for being on Al Jazeera. So, first of all, as the international forces prepare to hand over power to Afghan forces, what is your view of the situation? What's the verdict? Do you think it's mission accomplished for the international forces? Have they achieved their objectives?
I don't believe so. I believe the security threats are still real in Afghanistan and this region, and as pointed out by the news report, at its peak, about 140, 150,000 international troops that are, combatant troops are going to go down to zero next year. And the hope is that the Afghan army would be standing to replace those security forces, but I'm afraid that the Afghan army is not at that stage yet, and perhaps would not be at that stage of readiness in 2014. Yes, there's a large contingent of Afghan army, but in large parts they're not extremely effective. But also there's another issue. The nature, character of the security threat in that area is not just local to Afghanistan. This is a regional threat, and I'm afraid that the Afghan army is not going to be able to go across the border, for example, in Pakistan, chasing the Taliban. That would be problematic. So there is all these issues to address, in addition to the fact that, of course, there's elections, presidential elections coming in Afghanistan in 2014, which adds to the problems.
Right, and there are negotiations going on between the Afghan government currently and the U.S. for a number of troops to stay on the ground beyond the 2014 deadline. How long do you think it will take for that stage of readiness of the Afghan army to happen, do you think? Are we looking at a number of years? And how many troops would need to stay, in your opinion?
Right. It might take a while, but the truth is that the international troops are withdrawing and next year, and that's the deadline that we have. And in the same year that we're going to have elections, as you remember, in 2009, the security issues were not really a huge issue. Nevertheless, compared to now, 2009 was not a very successful election period. As you imagine, that could create instability in 2014 because of the election process, because this is the end of President Karzai's tenure as well. So by all means, the security issue is not addressed. I'm afraid that the Afghan army is not ready to assure the security, that the regional security. And then perhaps there are a couple things to look at that point to more hope. Right. There are two new presidents, both in Iran and Pakistan, so it offers us an opportunity to turn a new chapter, both to rely on Mr. Nawaz in Iran, in Pakistan, and Mr. Rouhani in Iran, for the U.S. To use and leverage that process to bring the negotiating party together in Afghanistan to seek a political settlement rather than a military solution.
And there's a lot of hope also pinned on a reconciliation with the Taliban, who are set to open an office here in Doha in just a few hours. So how significant do you think that is? Will that legitimize the Taliban? And, how soon until we see them integrated into Afghanistan's future power structure, or are we still a long way off from that?
I'm afraid that the issue of a political settlement or negotiation with the insurgents, with the Taliban, have only emerged recently. We've been at this for 12 years, and only the past couple of years we've taken that a little bit more seriously. And I'm afraid that in the United States, for example, the special representative to Afghanistan and Pakistan's office have not really been endowed to bring the negotiating parties together. Now, with the new leader there, Ambassador James Dobbins, a very competent diplomat, there is a chance to pursue, both with the help of Pakistan and in Afghanistan, a better process, a new chapter of bringing the negotiating parties together in order to seek a settlement, because without a political settlement, I'm afraid that we will never address the future security issues in Afghanistan and its region.
Okay, thank you very much for your insight. Masood Aziz, a former senior advisor at the Afghan Embassy in Washington, D.C., joining us there live. Thank you for your time.